What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Preps Cast. I'm Alex Miller with the Eagle. That's the one and only Jake Weiss, the Eagles high school sports reporter. Jake, it's about that time.
I was going to say, shout out to Coach Vitrick from College Station. He always posts the countdown every day. So, we're 7 days away if you're wondering. I saw the post today.
Who was the 7-day post today from them? Do you recall?
Ooh, I didn't look at it that close. I just saw 7 days and I thought, we got to hurry up.
He's been doing that for several years. I wonder, next time I see him, I'm going to ask him how much time goes into doing that, because I'm sure it's not necessarily the easiest chore to do.
Yeah, I was just to say, it's, I want to say he starts at, 100 days and then goes back? Yeah. So, which I have to say, once again, I know we're 7 days away, but I have to say early in the summer, pretty helpful too, just knowing, okay, we're only, 91 days away. Okay, I've still got some time,
Well, hey, we're recording this on a Friday. This is the final Friday without high school football in Texas until the weekend before Christmas, which is just crazy. Buckle up, it's here, Jake. The roller coaster is here. So, of course, all of our teams, they have started their preseason practice. Everyone pretty much has partaken in some scrimmage of sorts. Yep. And so, I think today what we're going to do is kind of just look at maybe what's one question surrounding each of our 7 local teams as they start the new season, and just what we've seen and heard from their scrimmages the last week or so.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
First of all, though, I've got to say, Jake, and this is something you and I experienced last night. You were at the College Station scrimmage the whole game taking photos.
Yep.
I split my time. I was at Bryan and Consol and College Station. I just got to say, I guess I understand, but I also don't understand the whole logic behind wearing different numbers. Like, I understand it's like kind of this strategic thing, but you're going to play in the right number next week. And truth be told, the non-district games, they matter, but as far as playoff implications go, they don't really matter. So I don't know. I think I just think it's a little silly. I know it's all, it's all fun and games and it's just part of it, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I have to say, at the beginning, I was thinking to myself, man, I'm going to have to ask a lot of guys, so why'd you change your number this season? And then I had someone come up to me and say, hey, they're not wearing their numbers. I thought, okay, I can throw that question out the window because, like I said, I was starting to kind of take some notes in my notebook saying, okay, this guy changed his number. Oh, this guy changed his number. Wow. And then, like I said, halfway through, get told that, and I just thought, that goes out the window.
Yeah, last night I'm at the Consol scrimmage, and you've got Will Hargett's standing next to Cameron Vines, and they're both wearing 0. And I was like, wait a second, this isn't right. But it's all fun and games. I just think it's kind of funny that they do that, but it's all good. All right, Jake, let's hop into it. Let's start with Bryan, our lone 6A school. Jake, you got to write their season preview. By the way, we've got our annual high school football preview section coming out, what is it, next Thursday?
Yep, 24.
And we've got preseason stories and coverage for all 28 Brazos Valley teams that we cover. So it's gonna be a really robust section. Hope you pick up a copy of the paper or check it out online, because a lot of late nights went into getting that done, and I'm pretty proud of our product. But
yeah, I am too. I'm excited for people to read it, and hopefully, it's right before the season. Comes out right before the season, so hopefully everybody gets a little bit more fired up. Even they're already fired up, but a little bit even more fired up when it comes out.
All right, getting back to it. Bryan Vikings, Jake, what are you seeing from them going into the season?
Yeah, man, just the big thing for me is year 2 under Coach Tellis. One of the things pretty much every player I talked with, and even Coach too, comfort level, way more comfortable than they were last year. First year you're kind of filling out a coach, kind of they're figuring you out. Where can they put guys? Kids are trying to figure out new plays, new systems, new schemes. So year 2, night and day, really comfortable. And also, hey, last year, even if they weren't super comfortable, they made the playoffs. So, pretty good first year. But really the big thing this year that kind of I really took away was that Brian's, their defense is going to be really good. That's real senior heavy. A lot of guys with 2-3 year experience. Two of the guys that just come to mind right away are Luke Weltons and Tate Allen, names we've talked about before in the podcast. Just a real senior heavy group. Offensive side of the ball, a couple guys that are still kind of figuring things out. A quarterback, I know offensive line. Last year they had all 5 seniors. So still figuring out some things on that side of the ball. But you look at the defense, they didn't really lose a whole lot. So it's going to be a lot of veterans, a lot of guys coming back. I really think that's going to be a big key for them this season.
Yeah, last night I got to go out and watch a little bit of their scrimmage. Brian, A&M Consolidated did pretty good in the scripted plays, but from what I heard and could tell, it sounded like Brian did really well in that live half that they played with a running clock. We've talked about him before, and we've talked to him a ton. Tyson Turner. Yeah. I mean, I'm coming up with the nickname Turner the Burner. I mean, he can fly. I mean, if Brian can get him the ball in space, he is going to have a lot of touchdowns. Yeah. Because he is a really good player. I mean, true weapon on the outside. There's a reason why Texas Tech wants him to come play for them. And I think him added with Terrence Lewis, that's a really solid 1-2 punch at the skill position.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's whichever. I know, like we've talked about before, they're still kind of figuring out the quarterback position. Could just be one guy. They could play both. But, having Terrence and Tyson, you're not going to be coming in empty-handed. Like, that's going to make, that make me look good. They'd make me look good at quarterback if I was thrown out there. Those two guys, I'm real excited to see what they can do this season.
Yeah, on the other side of the equation, for A&M Consolidated last night, something that really stuck out to me was just how big that front seven was. I mean, last year they had a very veteran front seven, all those defensive linemen. You had Brock Sladen at linebacker. Obviously, all those guys are gone. It looked like Consol's just reloading, and now that they've brought down Trace Meadows down to linebacker, they've got some dudes that have some serious size there in the trench right there. Something I thought was interesting though was that we saw Cameron Vines. He was the primary running back for the Tigers, and it kind of looks like they're using Keyshawn Thomas and Trey Taylor in some different ways than we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to kind of the big question for them, or kind of big storyline for this season is just, it's a new coach. We all know that. It's Coach Brandon Schmidt. Just kind of what are they going to look like? You talked about Trace Meadows getting moved over. A couple of the guys I think have kind of moving in some different positions. I think kind of here, especially in the early goings, like next week when they play Huntsville, I'm real kind of curious, kind of what tricks, he has up his sleeve, what the offense and the defense are going to look like. And I'm interested to hear, I know you mentioned Cameron Vines. I'm interested to see what he can do. I know while I was working on the preview story, that was a player that Coach Schmidt, mentioned as kind of a young guy that made some surprise to people this season.
Yeah, I think for Consol, it's very easy to see they've got a lot of skill talent, and I definitely am curious to see what their ceiling is, because if things really start to click, I think Consol can have a really good season and make a run in the playoffs if they can get things going.
Yeah, and I think something else that Schmidt mentioned when we were just talking preseason was that, he knows the standard. I mean, Consol's made the playoffs, 18, 19 seasons in a row?
It's a pretty long streak.
Yeah, so he knows, getting to the playoffs is, part of that standard. And something he talked about is he hopes, eventually Consol can be a team that goes, 4 or 5 rounds deep every year consistently. I know this is just his first year, but with all those skill guys, you got to kind of wonder, hey, even though it's just the first year, could they make a run like that this year? I mean, they have the talent to do so, I think.
Yeah. On the other side of town, we were watching College Station quite a bit, and I got to talk with Coach Pryor quite a bit a couple weeks ago about their preseason. I think the big question that I have is just, can they keep the train rolling? Yeah. They've made the state championship game the last 2 years. 2 years ago, it kind of seemed like if they didn't make it, they might not have reached their potential. They got there, lost in a heartbreaker. Last year, really found their way, had kind of a little magical run to the state championship game, lost to a really good Alito team. who, by the way, is going to be really good again
Yeah, I
this
was
year.
to say, they didn't lose a lot of guys.
You know, they bring back a good core, but I'm definitely curious to see how that offensive line shapes up because similar to Consol, College Station has a lot of skill talent that we know about, but really trying to fill some holes in that offensive line. And but being honest, Jake, I thought they held their own pretty well last night.
Yeah, I think so too. And Coach Pryor said the same thing. I talked to him this morning, kind of gave him and myself a little, night to sleep on it. But we talked to him this morning, and he said, yeah, there's still work. Obviously, coming out of this scrimmage, he had kind of a funny line. He told all the guys before the game and after, hey, I hope tonight you play the best game of your season, but also I hope, you hope you played your best game of the night, and then but hopefully this isn't your best game of the year, because he wants the guys to kind of play well tonight, but then you want to build off that, keep it going, maybe make a late run to December. I mean, like we've seen the last 2 years. So really, just for them, the offensive line was one of the key groups he pointed out. Though, he thought they played well, and we saw that as well. I think they had 3 rushing touchdowns on the night. Yeah, 2 during the controlled portion, the set plays, and then they had the 1 during the scrimmage as well. So obviously, they're back to running the ball again. So they're not changing things up too much.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I definitely noticed a different gear to Aiden Martinez-Brown's game. I mean, you can really tell that he has taken a big step forward in that facet of his skill set. I mean, last year, he once he kind of got into a groove, he was a really good runner. But there were times where he couldn't put it into that second gear.
Yeah.
And I think last night there was one play in particular where it was a bubble screen to the right side, and he got the ball, got a couple good blocks. It was kind of one-on-one with the safety. He shook the tackle down the sideline, and then he had that other safety kind of trailing him, but he kind of took off a little ahead of him. And so I think that could be a big plus for the Cougars going into the year. Not only that, but I thought Arrington Maiden had a pretty solid game last year. I mean, you think about this time last year, College Station was really trying to figure out who their starting quarterback was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, they played some musical chairs pretty deep into district play last year. I think there's no question that Arrington's going to be that guy for them, and it seriously seems that he has taken some positive steps forward in his game as well.
Yeah, no, and that's what Stoney said as well this morning. He said he thought he looked sharp, and I had to pretty much agree with that. He knows better than I do, but just watching him yesterday, I thought he had some nice throws, some nice deep balls. Arrington had the touchdown. You mentioned the screen pass. That went for a touchdown, obviously. So it's good to see him and Aiden kind of have that connection again. We saw a lot of Cade Cochran at quarterback. He got a lot more reps, I thought, in the scrimmage portion of it, kind of with the twos. But yeah, Arrington, I mean, he looked really good in the reps we did see.
He's a tall dude.
Yeah.
Cade Corcoran. Tall guy.
They both are, I think.
Yeah, Arrington's tall too.
Walking by a couple of them on the sidelines, going from sideline to sideline for photos, I was like, man, how tall are something like? I don't remember you guys being this tall last year.
Yeah. Hey, Rudder. I think Robert Cessna got a chance to talk with Coach Izar today. Sounds like they had a pretty good night against Georgetown last night in their scrimmage.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he was telling us earlier today in the office, I think they scored during their scrimmage portion and held Georgetown scoreless. We've seen plenty of Georgetown from playing Consol and College Station in district play, so we know how good that Georgetown offense in particular can be. So big shout out to the Rangers there because, I mean, man, that's pretty good way to make a statement right before week 1, and not just make a statement, but get your guys, fired up for week 1. I think that makes coming to morning workouts pretty easy.
Yeah, you got a chance to kind of preview the Rangers season. What are you kind of hearing they're looking to figure out as they get into the thick of things?
Yeah, so the big slogan for them, kind of a team motto this year, is get back, and what that means is 2 years ago, they made the playoffs. Last year, that obviously didn't happen, kind of struggled through last year, but so this year, getting back to the playoffs is kind of what they want to do, and a big part of that is going to be on the defense. That was something that we really, really talked about, not just me and Coach Izar, but the players as well, is, hey, we want to be an improved defense. We don't want to give up, 200 rushing yards a game. We want to really kind of clamp down, and, it kind of sounds like they kind of are on the path. If they played as well as they did against Georgetown last night, kind of sounds like they're on that path, and let's see what they can do once the regular season gets rolling. I know they got Willis that first game, but that'll be a pretty good test with Florida commit DJ Lagway at quarterback. That'll be a good test for the defense.
Yeah, I got to watch him a couple years ago when they played Consol, and I mean, he was just a young sophomore, kind of coming on the scene. People were starting to hear about this kid, and I mean, he was really solid, and they beat a pretty good Consol team at Consol's home field. So DJ Lagway certainly a good talent over there in Willis. Well, I think our public schools, we've kind of gotten a good look at them. Let's look at our 3 private schools who, I think all 3 of them have some good potential, and I think that they themselves are kind of having some high aspirations going into the year.
Yeah, I think the first one you got to start off with is Brazos Christian. I mean, we talk a lot about kind of Coach Pryor and how great of a debut season him and the Cougs had. Same kind of thing for Coach Washington and the Eagles. Make the TAPS Final Four. I know they came up short in that, state semifinal game, but I hate to use the cliche, the Eagles are soaring, but they're probably flying pretty high after that first one. So I'm excited to see what they can do in year 2, and I got a chance to talk with him after their first scrimmage last week. They went up against They go up against Leon this week.
Yeah, I think it's this week.
Yeah, they go up against Leon this week. It was
Riesel
and Iola, is
yeah.
that right? Yeah. So they went up against Riesel and Iola. He thought it was a pretty good scrimmage. He said, hey, we had a little bit of trouble running the ball, but, it's early. They still got a second one in them. And he was real impressed with the passing attack. They didn't have starting quarterback from last year, Jackson Caffey. He was out. Hope to get him back this week for this week's scrimmage. But in his place, Hudson Jacobos had a 75-yard touchdown pass to, Truett Goodick. So, pretty solid start for them. Obviously, they've got things they want to work on. Like I mentioned, they go up against Leon. He said, hey, really talked about his defense. He said, we know Leon likes to run the ball. So he said it's going to be a really good test for us. Kind of go up against some sets we may or may not see this season, but it'll be a good test for our defense. And, in that scrimmage they had last week, defense was pretty good. Linebacker Jake Shaddix had a interception for a touchdown. He returned for a touchdown. We talked a lot about the D-line, guys like Ben Tillery, Darius Brumskill, Carson Brown, kind of a little bit by committee on that D-line. But, I don't know. Going to the state semifinals in your first year, it sets you up for some big success.
Well, and I tell you what, I got a chance to interview Coach Washington for the season preview, and, he talked about how their program, they only had 22 guys last year. This year they got 35.
Oh,
that's a pretty significant jump in the number of guys that you simply have to just play with.
Yeah.
And so, you mentioned those guys, those two-way players on the line. I think that's where that's kind of where their season will go, is how does the line shape up? And, they've got a guy in Ben Tillery they know they can count on. I know Carson Brown's a guy that they're really hoping can come into his own and have a good season. A little bit of a younger guy. He's a pretty big dude.
Yeah.
And they're gonna need to rely on some younger guys that might be a little unexperienced, but they've got some good pieces in place where if things can start to gel, Brazos Christian might see themselves back in that state semifinal round this year.
Yeah.
So, Allen Academy, I think just in talking to Coach Adams, they're just trying to get back to that Rams standard of deep runs that they got accustomed to, and they've got some guys.
Yeah.
Ethan Lucas, he's really good. Brockfield, pretty good. They've got those pieces in play that they think they've got some versatility there in those different areas. And I think they had a pretty good outing in that 16 scrimmage at Austin Veritas. If you got to talk to Coach Adams about that.
Yeah, I did, and I've actually got a little bit of a math equation for you, Alex, and the folks at home. But
man,
yeah, when talking with Coach Adams, it was a 6-team scrimmage, so everybody pretty much ended up getting 50 plays, 50 plays on offense, 50 plays on defense. Well, for the Rams, they scored on 20 of their plays on offense. And then on defense, only 6 of their defensive possessions ended with the other team scoring. So that's pretty good. You look at the math there, the numbers. That's pretty good numbers.
That is pretty good math for the Rams, Jake.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty good. So, like you said, Ethan Lucas had a big performance there. Rusty Lye McMurray, Jackson Reese, Brock Field, and hey, they even got their center involved, and he scored a touchdown. Logan Perez scored in that one as well. So, yeah, pretty solid start for the Rams. I know they got another one tonight, Friday night. Like we said, we're recording this on a Friday. They got a 3-team one. I think Calvert's coming. It's one of the teams that's coming. So, yeah, Allen Academy.
Hey,
pretty good first one.
And they played Smoking for Jesus last week. I know that's a school that, people have found out about and they've talked about. I don't think we've really gotten to talk about them on our podcast, though. So that's a great name.
It really is, yeah.
That is a great name. All right, let's wrap this up with St. Joe's. Travis Brown, our colleague, he did their season preview. I think the big question for them is, can this veteran team, kind of make a run?
Yeah.
They've got some guys that have had some pretty significant experience, names that we've mentioned on the podcast quite a bit last season.
Mark Mishler at quarterback. We all know Taps is about speed. Getting a guy like that back at quarterback, that's going to be a big boost. You got Jackson Carey back at running back, another pretty talented guy. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got Bryant Hudka at linebacker. Just three guys, we've talked about before, they're excited about. Getting those veterans back. And another thing, too, for St. Joe's, and Travis talked about that in his preview. I'm glad you mentioned his preview story. They won the TAPS 6A state tournament this summer. That can be a pretty big boost, especially for 6A. I know when we look at 7-on-7, it's kind of a little different because, you don't have defense. You don't have all 11 out there. But, hey, with 6-on-6 state tournament, it's all your guys there. So, this should bode. It should.
You
bode
would think
well.
It translates at least some, right? Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, hey, it gets your guys fired up for morning workout. That's my thing. I've been out to a couple of those morning practices at 6 a.m. I have to say, I don't know how they do it. So,
fair enough. Well, Jake, it's here.
Yeah.
It's here. What are you most looking forward to in your second Texas high school football season?
Ooh, I thought you were going to let me have the weekend to think about this for the next week's episode. I'm just excited to get back out there, see kind of just how our athletes do, our coaches, kind of getting to talk with everybody again. I know we got that at Media Days when we worked on our preview stories, but I'm just excited to kind of get back out there and see everybody again. Kind of, now that I kind of know the landscape a bit more, it's kind of nice, seeing familiar faces around.
Absolutely. Yeah, should be another good season in the Brazos Valley. So, hey, that's all we got for y'all today. Hope that gives you a little taste for the upcoming football season. We'll be back next week, of course, previewing Week 1's slate of games. Be sure to check theeagle.com next week for all of our preseason coverage that'll be rolling out. And, yeah, we'll see y'all soon. Thanks.